I think we all can agree. Everyone knows what a breakout looks like. Everyone knows how to learn level 2, right?
Yep.
It's the psychology and handling your own self when you're then in that environment. And for me, I think the best way to getting to that point is.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today is gonna be an awesome day because I brought my man Kyle Williams back to the show. He's known for being very consistent for many years and not losing more than 3,000 when he started, which is insane. So Kyle, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here.
Speaking of that, how consistent you are, you just had a killer month.
Yeah.
Just last month. What was it that you had?
It's like 205,000 for February. Yeah.
Insane. So here's what I want to dive into with you.
Okay.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like you've been one of the most consistent people that I've ever met in terms of being consistent in like slow growth and taking your time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
I think it started early on in my trading, and so to your point, for people who don't know, I started with a 6K E-Trade account, and the lowest it got, I think it's the worst peak, was like negative 4,300. So I had like I remember looking at my account, I had like $1,700 left, and knowing at that point, like this is kind of make or break. Like if I continue this path, like this will go to zero, this account. And so I think from the beginning I was accepting of where I was at. And I knew it was going to take a long time to get there, right? I joined and found trading with the idea that this was going to be a get-rich-quick thing, like most people, like get rich fast, right? But I quickly realized what it was. It wasn't that. But I also found the love and passion I have for it, and so it kind of went full 80 from let's just get rich really quick to I actually love this, and however long it takes, it takes. And so I remember, again, then this is about 10 months in, about maybe 13 or 14 months in, I start finding consistency and profitability. About a year or so later, I now have grown this $17,000 account. Well, backtrack, I refunded a second account with 4K. So I had this 1,700 E-Trade account and this 4K IB account.
Okay.
Over the next year and a half, I grew both those accounts equally to like maybe 15 to 18K. So again, I'm under PDT, I have 6 day trades, 3 in each account.
And when did you do it? You said in about how long?
This was about, I had entered now in 2018 or the end of 2017. The end of 2017, I got out of the hole. So that whole 4,300 I lost, I had turned break even total. Towards then the end of 2018, I had gotten at some point over PDT. I think it was actually maybe summertime because I remember August 2018 I did it. Sometime in spring, summer, I had like 15 to 18K. I was just there to get over PDT, and I was so consistent with only taking anywhere from 4 to 6 trades a week. I remember my mom offering, she's like, hey, I'll give you 10 grand to get over PDT just to start doing it. And I actually remember denying it. I actually say, no, I don't need it. Because at this point I was in my process. I was in my routine, in my schedule. Like I didn't necessarily need more trades. Yeah, there were moments where there were trades I could have taken had I had the extra day trade. But I kind of, like I said earlier, I just got into the process of knowing however long it takes. Like I love this so much, I want to be here, that if I do things correctly, I'm going to be able to just go at my own pace. And yeah, of course, when I look back at my career, sure, if I started over PDT, it probably would have gone a little quicker. But who knows what kind of obstacles and challenges I would have come across from not learning that level of patience and just content with where I'm at to just when it happens kind of thing. Because I see that a lot with people where they just want to be over it right away so they can trade as much as possible. And I get it. If you have a strategy that calls for a lot of trades, like of course you're going to be handicapped. But for me, that really instilled a level of patience where, one, if I don't have a setup, I'm not trading. And two, even if I do have a setup, I need to decide, is it worth a day trade? Which even now today helps me a lot of is it even worth a trade in general? Not just because I can't do it, but should I do it?
How do you determine that? Like what makes it not worth it, even if it's your setup?
I love grading them. I mean, everyone talks about the A, B, C, D or whatever, but beyond that, I mean, there's just like a list of things that I run through, and it could be in a different order. There's no actual, criteria I go through, like, check. But I'll look at a chart, I'll look at these indicators if I'm looking at like a breakout, right? Is there a clear even breakout level I'm even looking at, right? Is there news? What's the volume like? Have I bought this before and traded it properly before? Is it a smooth run or is it very choppy? Like I'll just try to soak in as much about it as I possibly can. And in my head over experience, I'll just give it like a grade. Like, this is and again, it's not exact science, but like, okay, this is a B minus, this is a B plus. And so when you get into when I look at a trade and I ultimately come to the conclusion of it's like a C or lower, yeah, you can take it, but the odds are going to be so much less in your favor. And maybe it does work, but again, I've never made huge moves in my account or huge moves in my profitability by going huge size on a C grade setup. It's always the A+, right? And the longer you're around as a trader, I think you begin to find out what that is. Because again, I wasn't grading setups, year 1, year 2, year 3. It really wasn't until the evolution into like year 4 that I can kind of briefly remember where it's like, okay, now I'm not worried about if it's a breakout or not. I know it's a breakout, but how ideal of a breakout is it? And from there, that's when I started to really, create some kind of form of dynamic sizing of like, if it's A+, then I definitely need to be bigger. How much bigger, that took some time to figure out as well, but I just knew I needed to risk more than what a C grade would give me,
Well, what would you suggest people who are currently like in year 1 and they're trying to get patience and they're trying to understand like, okay, like I'm not going to trade every day. Like how would you help someone like understand that? Because I know you help traders all the time.
Right.
Are you helping traders who are over trading every day? Like how do you help them not do that?
I mean, yeah, it's all mental. I think we all can agree. Everyone knows what a breakout looks like. Everyone knows how to learn level 2, right?
Yep.
It's the psychology and handling your own self when you're then in that environment. And for me, I think the best way to getting to that point is you wanting it badly isn't going to make it any faster, right? You can want it to be come today, right now, but that's just a want. There's nothing you can actually. You have to almost step outside of yourself and realize like no matter how bad you want it, it's not coming today. It may not even come in a year, but if you show up every day, it's what's it called? It's like micro speed but macro patience, where it's like long term it's going to be a long time you got to be patient, but during the middle of the day, I'm studying, I'm working on my strategies, I'm working on my psychology. You can do a lot in the day and get a lot done. It just might not lead to the bigger picture goal so soon, but then you show up for 200 days in a row, 300 days in a row, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, look how much progress I've made. And some people, again, like you mentioned, some people think that is in taking the trade. I think it's just sometimes saving your money. Like people forget that being break even is like a great thing some days. Like I'm stoked some days where no setups are appeared or maybe really crappy setups appeared and I avoided them. Like I'm stoked to be break even some days. So I think that's the best way. And then partly, the other thing I would add is, if people are like that in their life, I tend, and back to your consistency part, like I'm consistent almost everywhere in my life. And they will show up in your trading. So if I'm inconsistent somewhere else, it's going to show up in my trading. Whether to go to the gym, I'm making sure I'm working out 3 times a week. Whether I'm eating, a certain healthy meal, I'm doing that a certain amount of times a week. How I communicate with people. Like I try not to leave anyone hanging. If someone's called me, I'm going to call them back. It's just all these little things just really, not necessarily create who you are, but create how your brain works. And how, so you show that in the market, it's just not going to add up. The 2 and 2 aren't going to equal each other, So.
Someone's probably hearing this and they're probably thinking like, okay, you might grade an opportunity, but I am new and not really know, right? But at the same time, like they're trying to be disciplined and they want to pass up on something because they feel like it's not the best setup.
Right.
And then they see it work.
Right.
How do you have that? How do you judge yourself? Because especially when you're new and you're like, oh, that setup almost looks perfect, but I'm going to pass up on it. And you feel good because you were disciplined, right? But then later on you look at it and it would have worked beautifully. Like how do you deal with that dilemma?
And I think that's why the learning curve can be so hard for people, because it can go both ways too. It could be, it's almost good enough to take, or maybe I don't want to take it and it works great.
Right.
Or you see something actually that looks really good to you and then it doesn't work great. And you're like, crap, I took on an unnecessary loss in hindsight. Part of the reason why I think it takes so many years to finally get to figure out, like, let me backtrack too.
Sure.
When you're a beginner, you probably shouldn't even be thinking about that. You probably should be taking every setup you see. For that reason, you get the experience to know what is C-, what is B+, what is A+, right? You'll get this wide range of experience to know what typically works good, what typically doesn't work good. And part of that learning curve is, looking, maybe finally getting to that stage and saying, there's a setup that's like, I could take it, but do I really care to take it? Do I want to take it? And then it does work. Well, then that's another trade in your wheelhouse of experience that you now know to take it to the next opportunity. Like, okay, this ticker reminds me of that ticker, right? That I thought wasn't going to be good, but it actually did work. I can't tell you how many times I'll see a chart and it might make me immediately think of another trade of another ticker how many years ago, because I've seen it before, I felt it before, and it's just in there, So.
We cover a lot of information on trading here on Be the Trader, but none is more important than the broker you choose to execute your trades. There are many reasons I use Cobra Trading every day, including multiple order routes where I can get fast execution, great availability on locates for hard to borrow stocks, and fantastic customer service. But don't just take my word for it. Both Benzinga and Forbes Advisor have awarded Cobra for best in class for short selling and day trading. Isn't it time you choose a great broker that you'll enjoy working with? Sign up now by using the link below, and Cobra will provide you with free software for an entire month, plus 33% off commission for life. I know you'll be as happy as I am when you trade with Cobra. Now let's get back to the show. What have you found to be the biggest struggle though when it comes to, the end of weeks reviewing? Mm-hmm. I know a lot of traders that you're helping, like, do you find like they always do their weekly reviews, or do you find that it's a struggle for them?
Back to the that's inconsistency, right? If most people, I would say, don't, right? They will just lose track of it, and it's so hard. And it's such a double-edged sword, or maybe an upward spiral or downward spiral.
Yeah.
If you don't review consistently, well, all of a sudden you let 1 week go, then you let 2 weeks go, then you let 3 weeks go, and then you think about actually doing it. And you're like, oh my gosh, am I really going to give myself hours of work to review these last 3 or 4 weeks of trades? Versus if you just review it once a week or once a day, whatever process you find that works for you, you're never going to have it pile on top of yourself. So it's much easier to just incremental shifts of doing 1 review a day or 5 reviews a week than waiting a week, being inconsistent, and then toppling on top of that inconsistency with then not even wanting to do 4 weeks worth of work because you put it off.
Yep.
So for me, I'm again back to being consistent. Like, I've never felt that way because it's like once a week. It's almost like an OCD where if I don't have it done, I'm like, I haven't done it yet.
Yep.
Like, I need to get this finished. I can't continue my day unless this gets out of the way because I know it's still there, kind of thing. So yeah.
Now, I'm curious, do you ever find yourself falling back on your habits at all? And if you do, like, how do you get back on track, or how do you treat yourself? Because I know some people will beat themselves up, so I'm just curious.
I think you want to be your biggest fan, but your biggest critic. And I say that and I say biggest fan first because our brain, and this is not just me and you, like, the human brain is naturally designed to be negative. Like, predisposition, default is negative. So, and I hear it all the time, people will talk about themselves more negatively than they ever talk about anybody else, right? And so if you wouldn't talk about someone else the way you're talking to yourself, you shouldn't be talking to yourself that way, right? I've heard all the people like, oh, I suck, I'm so stupid. And yeah, you may talk about somebody like that if you really hate them. Yeah. But if you're not gonna talk to an average friend, like, you probably shouldn't be talking to yourself that way. So for me, you gotta switch that, be your biggest fan, but then you also need to be your biggest critic in the sense that you don't wanna then self-delusion, like create the self-delusion. Yep. Where like, oh, I'm the best ever, look at me, I'm so good, and you're like average.
Right, absolutely.
And so the biggest critic part is like where you become your own coach, right? Where if you do screw up, you own it, you don't beat yourself up, you say, hey, you screwed up, here's how we're gonna fix it, this is how I know I can fix it, the positivity part, and then you move forward from there. That constant dynamic, so to speak.
Now, you mentioned a couple of times the idea of like maybe you're even happy if you don't trade that day.
Yeah.
How often does that even happen? Like, is it something that's completely out of the norm, like you're not trading that week for one day, or is it something that is like kind of normal for you? Like, it could happen once a week and that's okay, or just curious.
When I think about my months, when I look back, there's definitely, in February I think I traded every day. But most months I'll have 1 or 2 or 3 days a month where I haven't taken a trade. Sometimes I'll take off. Like last year in May, I was on like a 2-week vacation, so I traded like 1 day out of that week. And by vacation, it was the first time I actually, didn't have any time to trade, but actually challenged myself to say, hey, I'm not really caring to trade. Like, I'm actually stepping away for good. Of course, I would still check my quotes here and there, but I wasn't ever gonna sit down and put away my vacation plans to trade, kind of thing.
Yep.
So there's aspects like that, but in terms of I am actively showing up every day in the market, there could be, once a week that I don't take a trade.
Was it more frequent early in your career, or? Less,
and that's what was, so when I crossed the PTT, that's when I started getting in a groove of actually almost trading every day.
Okay.
Because beyond that, now I actually had the capital and not the energy, but the availability to actually learn other setups and take more trades, which is I eventually slowly evolved and did. But under the PDT, I only had I started with like 1 or 2, and then about a year beyond finding profitability, I had like 3 or 4. So there were many trades I wasn't taking, right? I only had 6 to 8 trades a week. So for the first 2 years, we'll call it, I was taking 4 setups. Now I have maybe 8 to 10, kind of thing.
Yep.
So now it's way more
It's
active.
just more consistent.
Right,
Yep.
it's way more active. Back then, I would only take maybe, again, 3 times I'm trading a week. Because sometimes one day when I have 2, another day I have 1, another day I have 0, and then the last day of the month, or the week is 2, right? So I have like 5.
Were you
or
still
whatever it is.
tracking trades if you only had 3 trades that week available? Like, were
Yeah.
you still like trying to pretend you were trading, if you will, like to track it to build consistency?
Oh,
you know
like
what I'm
if
saying?
I didn't have a day trade?
Right, and you saw a good setup.
Yeah, earlier on when I wanted to track some things, I would track it whether I took the trade or not. Eventually, it came to the point of me understanding that I needed. This is where backtesters don't like me because I'm not a big backtester myself, and
Yeah.
but I do agree, and backtesting can work really, really well. I've just never been a big guy to do it because even when I did my maybe mediocre attempt at it or tries at it, for me, it's like I knew it worked. Like I said, everyone knows how breakouts work, but then can you actually mentally handle them and trade them correctly when you're in the trade? And for me, a lot of the setups that I was doing it with, like particularly breakouts at the time, I'm much better at breakouts now, but when I was doing it with breakouts, again, I knew they worked, but couldn't have the patience to stay in them, right?
Yep.
Couldn't have the patience to buy a breakout and be willing to hold for 12 hours, maybe into the next day to actually see the breakout work, because some could be pretty choppy before they actually get going. Now I've actually built up that patience, and now I can do that. But as a beginner, I sucked at it. So eventually I started to care more about how am I personally trading than the actual setup that happened. Like if it happens and maybe I screw up, then yeah, I want to know how I screwed up.
Yeah.
But if it happens I didn't take it for whatever reason, I'll still mentally log it. Like I said, it's all in there, but I won't actually write it down or put it in Excel
Gotcha.
or whatever it is. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier the whole idea of like if it's a C setup, I might not even take it. Now I'm curious, like, would you say the majority of your money is made on the A's? Like, and if it is, like, what percentage would you say?
So I always love to. I actually do track this too, and I'm actually not always there. But like the Pareto analysis, where like it's the 20% of something equals 80% of the results, right? And so what I will typically do is I'll try to look at what were my top 20% of my trades and how much of my total bottom line does it equal. And a lot of times I'm actually inefficient to the point where the top 20 trades equal like 110% or something like that. So it's like I'm actually giving some money back by taking the lower grade trades. Not much, right?
Yeah,
it's only 10% more, but it's still there. And again, the hard part about that is because some viewers might be wondering, like, okay, if you know what your A+ trades are, why are you even taking the other trades?
That was my next question, right?
Right, and so for me, sometimes this is where the longer I've traded, I've started to throw away C setups where it's like I'll see it and I'll grade it as a C, but I just know it's not going to make a difference for my trading, right? Because again, when I see a C, it's now going to be my average size for my average loser or smaller.
Okay.
So, and I'm at the stage now where if I'm taking that trade, does it really matter to me, right? I've made my millions. Does an extra 2 or 3K make a difference?
Right.
Probably not. I'm grateful for 2 or 3K. I'll take it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a risk reward of like, well, how would I feel losing it? Like, I don't really care for the emotional energy to do this, right? Much other things I'd rather be doing. And so when we get into the B areas where like, okay, I'll take the average size, maybe a little bigger or average, mostly on Bs. But there's just some times where I'm just gonna give big given losses. And if I'm given a month where it's not very opportunistic or there is opportunities, but I just have a lower win rate, then it's gonna ergo come out to be where 3 or 4 trades the whole month made my whole month, but everything else just kind of shot me up and down, maybe gave a few grand back here and there.
Yeah.
And so part of that is just having to trust that and take those trades regardless, because I don't necessarily regret it, because when you then are given a hot market and you may not actually know it at the time, you look back and like, oh my gosh, all my B setups added an extra, call it X amount of money to my bottom line, because I've had months like that.
Has that happened?
Yeah, and specifically it's more of when the market's super hot. So like 2020, 2021, that's when I was making insane amount of money, and it wasn't because any one trade was massive.
Yeah.
It was because every trade I took was like a 10K winner. So it's like 10K, 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 10K. And before you know it, my February of 2021, which is my best month ever, I made like over 400 grand. I haven't had a month even close since.
Yeah.
But it's because I did have the few big winners that were huge, but then all of the other trades, because the market was so hot, it just like added to the bottom line, Like only one red day the whole month. Had like a 70-some% win rate, and I only have like a 60%. So it was just win. Again, most markets aren't like that. So again, part of me is having to maybe get better. That's maybe the next struggle I have, where it's like really wait for only A+, and don't even bother anything else. But again, part of me just likes trading. I like being there, So.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, what is the difference in terms of size? Because you say I'll take an average size or below average? And then if it's an A, what is is it double size? Like, just give us an idea, just because it could give perspective on things.
I'm very comfortable losing anywhere from $3 to $4 to $5 grandish in there.
Is that an average setup?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is average. So and then when I look at my months over average, even over the bigger losers and the average losers, that's where it roughly is, which is where I like it. Some losers will be like 2K, but again, those are like the C's or like maybe it's a starter position and I already get stopped out before it starts, so the loser's really smaller that way. But like if, say we're just giving an average like B, I would risk like $3 or $4 grand, right? If you get to B plus, I go get like 4 or 5. It's when we get into the A's and especially into the A pluses where that's where it really starts to escalate. Because to me, it's almost not even a perfect ABC. It's almost like there's let's do like a 1 through 10. There's 1 through 7, and then it immediately jumps to 10. Right? There's no like 8 or 9. It's like usually it's good or it's amazing, and it's like you can't miss this trade. And so that's when it goes from it'll go from
SMCI, like
yes, exactly. Where like the stars align. You can't miss this if you're like this is the Super Bowl of trading for if you're here. And so for me, it would go again for SMCI is a perfect example where like, again, let's say 5K is the average risk. I mean, I 5x'd it. I was willing to lose 25 grand that day. The day it actually died. Because for me, it's like it's so good that I'm okay losing that much. But 2, what are the odds I actually ever have to stop out, right? And that's where it gets tricky because there are times where I've told myself that. And then actually have had to stop out, and you're like, ooh, that loss hurts. Yeah. So you do have to be accepting of the risk you actually put on, whether it is 2, 3, 4, 5 times bigger than your average loss.
Right.
But for me, the reason why I'm so comfortable doing it now is because 1, I know I can accept the loss if it happens, but 2, what are the actual odds I'm even gonna have to take it in that ideal scenario? Because sometimes when you only can tell this in hindsight, obviously, but the foresight I have from seeing so many setups like this that the stars do align, it's like, well, this is such a high odds setup, like, I need to be in this and I need to be big.
Yeah.
Because the odds in my favor could be 80, 90%, where it's so, 10 out of 10 times I would take that trade because it's going to work so well. And SMCI worked beautifully that day.
It really did. And it just comes to the thought of like, the next thought is just, that's such a dramatic increase that is it justifiable to say that if you did eliminate all the other ones that you could exponentially even grow even more because you would be so focused and ready, like fresh to like risk 25 because you haven't lost in 5 days at all. You know what I'm saying?
Right. There's
have you thought about that?
There's a good aspect of that, and I will say for reference, the reason why I think I'm so comfortable 5xing it now is because I've done it enough. Like it wasn't like I just started with an A plus or say a 10 out of 10 setup and went, okay, we're gonna 5x. It would first start. It would get to like baby steps. So like if I first, and this is an example, but at some point in my career, I know what happened. I just don't know when.
Yeah.
If I saw my first A plus or deemed this to be an A plus trade, it would be 2x.
Yep.
It would still be. It's not like I'm going 0 to 100. I'm still slowly building into that huge acceptance of risk. There's almost like an acceptance of risk for your average trade and an acceptance of risk for your above average trade. Because I can't averagely accept 25 grand losses for an average setup. I would lose my mind. I get tilted and emotional easily. But when it reaches a certain level of criteria or like the stars align, like I've been saying, I almost have like a switch where my brain goes to, okay, this is a risk on mode. I'm totally fine losing 25K, right? But it took some time to get there kind of idea.
You just slowly kind of built that confidence.
And you build that second groundwork from average to also well above average. But to your question about like, well, what would you do if I just cut out all setups or all trades together and only just go huge on the ones that are really good? The only thing I don't love about that idea makes me think of, and this is not because he does bad, but I remember talking to Gratani when I met him or I saw him we were in Maine together, and he's taken a very retired approach. So like he'll do what you've mentioned, or at least for what he told me, which is like he might not trade for 2 full weeks.
Yep.
But if he sees something really good, he will just take all of the risk he would have taken and just thrown it on there. The issue that I have is that I don't know if I'm right there yet, because I know in my brain, if I did that and then actually lost, and that was my one trade for the month, and I end the month red because for whatever reason that one, because A pluses do fail. There are sometimes where things are A plus and they might go higher, they might go lower before they actually work. So there is a loss to be had. I know I would be pissed if, say, for 2 weeks I didn't trade, And so like there's a 5K risk here, there's a 3K risk there, and then we meet the big kahuna, 25K here, but it's like, okay, let's add the other 20 or 30, 40 grand that I would have taken, so I'm risking, let's say 70 grand.
Yeah.
If I lose that 70 grand, I'm going to be way tilted.
Okay.
To where I'm not comfortable risking 70 grand again. If say it's an SMCI. What if SMCI went to 1,200 that day and I lost 25? Am I willing to lose 25 the next day? For me, yes. But if I'm doing the 70K example, I would not be comfortable losing 70K 2 days in a row kind of idea. So I'm not necessarily there yet. I think at some point I will be.
I wasn't even referring to that, but that's a good point. I was more so referring just sticking to the 25K and just waiting and just always betting the 25 every time it showed up.
Yes and no. I mean, that makes me curious because I want to say all the trades add to a bottom line, but like I said, there are some months where it didn't. It makes me curious as to looking. We'll put it this way: the top 4 biggest trades of my 2023, I believe, or top 5, resulted in like half my year. So there's the big kahunas, and again, there's so many different levels, right? There's the 10 out of 10 trades that were half my year, but there's a lot of other really good trades that were like A's, the 7 out of 10s that were worth taking that led to an extra couple $100 grand. So there's a fine line. I don't know what line that is for me.
Like all A's only.
Right. And unfortunately, sometimes there's some trades that just work. There's always the serendipitous or the randomness that they're like. There are some B setups that end up actually working well. They're rare, but they do happen. And so part of me, maybe that's my next stage of being willing to just to miss them. Yep. Like if they happen, that could have been a huge winner, but you know what? It wouldn't. I don't know that until hindsight happens.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely the next stage for sure.
Look, Kyle. I know people are gonna have tons of questions and they're gonna want to learn more about you. So could you let them know how they can do that?
So first is Twitter, at Trader Kyle C. Tweet a lot about show charts and stuff like that, share my months. Then I actually make YouTube videos on my YouTube channel. It's like Kyle Williams 375. Just type in Kyle Williams Trader. I'm on YouTube there.
And we'll have links below for sure.
Cool, awesome. And then in terms of actual like hands-on teaching, I am part of a group called Clover Trading. We do have like an online community and like a Discord room. But we do have a website, clovertrading.io. That's where I actually give webinars and we have a free YouTube channel too. I do YouTube videos there. So yeah, those are where people can find me.
Perfect. Well, look, everyone, we'll provide links below so that way you can check out Kyle as soon as this video is over. And again, thanks, brother.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.